welcome, Ben Tanner.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah.
So let's get this party started. We met when you were the house engineer at Fame Studios, and that would have been 06, 07, something like that?
Yeah, I was there 06 to 09, kind of May 06 to May 09, almost to the day.
Yeah, Haley was interning down there back when Angela and Zach Hacker were doing the Nashville Star thing. She was doing press releases for them. That was 06 or 07. I can't remember which year.
Yeah.
But that's kind of how we met. I just hung around and was the annoying guy in the way, I guess.
No, I like having those people around most of the time.
But that's kind of how we met. You know, I remember Dylan LeBlanc was down there all the time. We'd sit around on the couches with guitars, and I'd go in the studio and play on the piano when I was not supposed to. Nothing was happening in A really at that time. I mean, it didn't appear to be. It was like you were usually living in B.
Yeah,
right?
I was usually in B, doing a lot of the publishing stuff. That was kind of where Studio B was, where they did a lot of the publishing demos and things like that. And that was kind of my usual day-to-day.
It was like Gary Nichols was down there. And
Jason Isbell was still published down there. James LeBlanc, Dylan's dad, Dylan, the Hackers, like you said. So yeah, and then they were pretty cool with me, like on nights and weekends, especially weekends, just bringing in local bands and stuff like that, which is just into the B room, which is a good place to learn.
So how did you land that gig?
I landed that gig. I had moved. I went to college in Memphis. I grew up here. Went to Muscle Shoals High School, and then I went to college in Memphis. And then right after college, moved to Paris, France, with the girl I was dating. Got a job in Paris, and I figured, well, why not? We'll see what that's all about. But before I left, I'd kind of made it clear to my parents that whatever I did next was going to be giving music a real shot. Like I wasn't going to go straight to grad school or law school or anything like that. And
how long were you in Paris?
About a year, like the year after college.
I want to put a pin in that and come back to that.
So while I was over there, my dad, a couple years before that, who's a lawyer in Tuscumbia, started a new law firm with Rick Hall Jr., Rick's oldest son. And then when I was in France, they had someone, at the time they didn't have a full-time staff engineer. I think, if I got the timeline right, like Jimmy Nutt had just left to do his own,
that
to do the
sounds
Nut House.
About right. Was Daniel Beards, he was
still around.
He was more freelancing, right?
Yeah, exactly. So at the time, they just had like kind of a bunch of freelance guys. They'd call Jimmy Nutt for stuff, or Alan Schulman, or Daniel Beard a lot, Don Shrigley. But they didn't have anyone full time. But they had someone leaving who had been doing like the publishing admin work, which is basically just an office clerical job. And so my dad got in touch with me and said, hey, this guy's leaving. This position's opening. They don't have a staff engineer. So there would kind of be the opportunity for you to work into that if you wanted to.
Now, you went to school for, was it philosophy?
Yeah, I've got a music minor, but my degree's in philosophy with a music minor.
Okay, so I want to ask you about that. How do you feel like, because I feel like I could definitely use a philosophy degree, having spent so much time in the studio.
Yeah, or a psychology degree.
Or psychology, yeah, it's like prop back on the couch, because especially in times where I've produced bands, like there's one band in particular that I'm a huge fan of, local band that I worked with for well over a year, but they went through different band members, so the band changed and it morphed into a thing that ended up being better, but I had to go through everything the band went through with them and just see it through to the end.
Yeah, there's a ton of that's got nothing to do with music and certainly nothing to do with like any of the technical side of it. It's just like the interpersonal
life.
Yeah, life stuff and interpersonal stuff and how to deal with people, and no one particularly sane pursues this.
That's a fair statement.
Full time. So you're dealing. People are bringing a lot of different things. Whether it's some instances just a little bit of baggage, and in some instances they're working through some really
especially
intense
songwriters.
Yeah,
because creatives, we tend to be. You're pulling it from somewhere, especially singers. Any type of creative.
I got to tell a story. 2 years ago, my band was in Austin for South by Southwest. and we had a hired gun with us who I won't name because he's local to this area. And it ended up with us having to separate our hired gun from a random guy in the streets of Austin that was trying to fight him. And of course, he was our guy, so we were squaring up. We're like, no, get off of him. This is going to happen. And we found out that the guy that attacked him in the street was doing so because our hired gun wanted to bring his girlfriend or his wife, I guess his girlfriend, with him, and the dude was trying to stop him because he started hitting his wife. So he didn't have a career with us long after that.
Damn.
But we got to digging into it, and man, there's
stuff you see in the studios and playing on the road, especially, man.
that's
it's an intense thing that everybody's dealing with. So the interpersonal stuff is as important because I've known plenty of people who are really good at musicians or engineers or producers who are really good at like the musical part of it and are really talented and gifted, but when it comes to the interpersonal part, they're not as gifted or they don't pay attention to that part enough. So they may make something really good, but they're difficult to actually work with and be around.
So since you have a philosophy degree, what is your philosophy on that? I mean, do you think one is better than the other or more important than the other? Or?
No. I mean, I think it's something that everyone has to develop their own sort of attitude and methodology with it. But, for me, I always looked up a lot to the folks who could do something really great and hold a really high standard, but also be decent and
Right.
be considerate. I mean, there's a lot of people. I mean, I wouldn't be telling any new story to know that like Rick Hall could be like a really difficult person to work with. He made incredible records and was like a really brilliant guy, and could also be a very like nice and sweet person to be around. But he was sort of notorious for being a really hard taskmaster in the studio, and for him that's how that got results. But folks like Spooner, or David Hood, who were just like top-notch, session legends, but they're also just really nice to be around. They're really pleasant people, and that's kind of things like, if you can, for me, it's just really about trying to aim for like making the best thing possible, which sometimes require that you push somebody a little harder than maybe they want to be pushed, but also at all times like making sure everyone's heard. You also don't want to, I've been on both sides of sessions where it's like you're playing on something and you feel like all your ideas are ignored. Even if your idea ends up not being the thing that works, it's like just making sure everyone has like a creative voice in it and doesn't feel like they're just shut down immediately.
Yeah, you don't want to feel like your idea is going to suck before they ever even listen.
Yeah,
And
totally.
I mean, because to me, I'm kind of like, let's try everything. Let's throw spaghetti against the wall. Let's see what happens. You never know. Because I remember one time, you may not even remember this. I think it was Gary Nichols in B, and it was like, what's that really weird sound? And it was an empty metal garbage can in the corner that ended up being like a drum echo thing. Like you put a 57 in it. Do you remember that?
I would definitely do stuff like that.
I don't know if you ended up using that.
Yeah.
But that, and I remember you guys had the old original Line 6 Bean pod.
Oh, yeah.
Sitting on that, was it an AMEC console?
Yeah,
that
it was
used
an
to have
AMEC. Yeah, in there at the time.
And I was like, why are you using that when you've got a Music Man and a Fender and all? Like, and your answer was, it sounds different. And I'm like,
those things especially, I don't like to use those. Which I haven't used those in a while, but stuff like that, I don't really like to use them for what their sort of advertised intent and purpose is. To like emulate an amp or fake an amp. It's really more if you kind of abuse them a little bit and kind of use them wrong.
A lot of gears like that,
though. You can get some really weird, far out stuff.
Well, a lot of gear that we consider vintage, what they're used for is not really what they're intended for. Like a FET 47 was not intended to be on a kick drum.
Sure, yeah.
But it's one of the best sounding mics, in my opinion, on a kick drum.
Yeah.
So what do you think's the coolest sound you've gotten out of something that it was not supposed to make that sound?
Gosh. Well, I had for a long time, there's plenty of stuff where it's like something gets fixed and then it's not as good as it was, but it's like I shouldn't have fixed it.
That's the new and improved.
Yeah.
I had a little Wollensack tape recorder, which are these like portable tape recorders from back in the day that you'll see them in old movies and footage from people on the road. Like Donnie Fritz said, they all had them on the road, and they're about the size of like a lunchbox, but they're really heavy.
Okay, yeah,
but they're little quarter-inch reel-to-reel, but they have a bunch of tubes in them, and they have like a really cool signal path. And we had one for a while, and we still have it, and I still use it, just not as much as I used to, because it doesn't do this thing wrong anymore. Where it just has like we disabled the transport part to actually run tape, and just used it as like, you could use it as an amp because it had a little internal speaker, and it would get like
cool.
really fuzzed out and crazy sounding.
Yeah.
Or I also just used it as like, I would just send stuff to it to like either thicken things up or like grit things up just a little bit.
Yeah.
And then feed that back in just as like kind of like on an aux as just a little different distortion flavor. And then it stopped working like altogether, like wouldn't pass signal, and got it fixed. And it works now, but it's never sounded the same, which makes me think there was something wrong with it for a long time until it finally just crapped out.
Right.
So time to just abuse the hell out of it again and see what
Go
happens.
throw it
Yeah,
down some
right.
stairs. So I don't want to stay on this for too long, but I do want to ask, what do you feel like you got out of your experience at working at Fame?
A lot of the work ethic part, I mean, that was something Rick always preached, both from when he got started, but also then. I mean, when I was working there, Rick was almost exactly 50 years older than me, like give or take. And so, I was like 23, 24, 25, and he was in his mid 70s, and he'd wear me out. Just like it was so relentless and would really put in the hours and really walked the walk of that work ethic part. So that was one big thing for sure, is just like the work. And then just getting like so many hours in and getting to work with like a lot of those great session players and seeing how they do things. I mean, I'm really glad. It was kind of a pain at times when I was there. Like when I was there wasn't a Pro Tools rig in Studio A. There wasn't like, all there was like a 2-track. You could dump mixes.
I forgot about
into like
that.
a 002.
Yeah.
But they didn't get a full on like multi-track Pro Tools rig until a year or two after I left.
I guess
But
that's
that
why
was-
everybody was in B all the time.
Yeah, that's a huge part of it with demos and stuff. I mean,
Yeah,
you didn't want to do that
absolutely.
to have the expense of tape to cut a songwriter demo.
Right.
But Rick was an all tape, all analog guy, and so a lot of folks my age didn't really get that exposure or experience, but I got a lot of straight analog recording experience in there. And I still do some of that, and it varies project to project, but it's nice to have that kind of in the tool bag. It's like if somebody wants to cut the tape, I'm comfortable with it. Or if somebody's like, hey, I want to keep it as analog as possible, I'm like, all right, cool. Like that's a huge part of it, having that skill set.
Yeah.
But
Well,
yeah,
what ab-
really just overall, just the getting the hours in over there and just having the exposure to this like session after session and different and getting to work with a lot of different engineers, because that was the other thing, is especially when I first worked there, I was mainly just assisting whatever freelance engineer was in. You get to see how a lot of different people work and just kind of pick up a lot of tricks that way.
So you would have obviously been working with Shrig, Don Shrigley, and did you work with Alan Schulman much?
Yeah, a little bit. Less with Alan, just because he was gone. He was in town less.
Yeah.
But yeah, there were the occasional sessions with Alan.
Well, see, I was supposed to intern at Fame, and then Rick just decided there was some riffraff he was trying to just kind of dispel, and
He would
he
do
just
that
decided
every
he
now and
didn't want any interns, nothing personal. But I remember I went down there one day, and you were like, I've got some bad news. Because I was hoping to be working with you and learning
Right.
with you. And I ended up going down the road to Wishbone. I had helped them tote that big VR Legend
Yeah.
Neve boat anchor
Yeah.
console and into the control room. So I had a little bit of a relationship with them. And little did I know that Mike McGuire, drummer from Shenandoah, that was the manager of the studio at the time, whose brother Bud owned the studio, was literally on the phone with my advisor like, hey, I know you guys probably have everybody in their spot for their internships, but we could use one.
Yeah.
If you guys have anybody free. And I'm like, I'm your guy. and I didn't know how things had gone down with Shenandoah and Rick at that point.
Right.
So I didn't know that there was some motivation there for him to hire me as
Yeah.
an intern. So, but I got to learn a lot from Don Shrigley,
Yeah.
because he was
Me
down there
too.
doing a lot of work at that point in time in 2008.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So, well, when I was down there a lot, Linda was spending a lot of time in the office. Did you ever really hang with her much, or
Yeah,
Did you?
I mean, tons.
What do you? I want to get her and talk with her too, because I mean, she was so much at the backbone of that. If she
Absolutely.
hopefully would agree to do an interview.
Yeah.
What do you feel like you saw and gained from being around her?
I mean, it truly it was and is, but especially then when Rick was still there and really active. I mean, it was really a family business.
Yeah,
you
Linda
know?
Hall, Rick's wife,
Right.
for those that don't know.
And she was also like the primary bookkeeper. I mean, from what I understand, and this was way before my time, that at some point, and I want to say the late 70s, early 80s, but it could be incorrect, that that their books kind of became a mess. And I'm not sure if that was just by negligence or some foul play, like somebody skimming off the top. It was something like that. I don't know all the details, but Linda at that point took over the bookkeeping for Fame, and it stayed that way for a long, long time. So she was kind of, she wanted to make sure stuff was right. And that's a good lesson in the music business, is like, you gotta have somebody who's paying attention to the details and to the numbers. And because it's easy for all of us on the creative side to lose sight of that and then realize
Right.
like, oh, I don't think I ever got paid for that.
Well, we're more into the side of let's go in and plug up a microphone.
Yeah, and
let's
we'll
let's
figure
make some cool sounds.
Yeah, we'll figure out the money part later. It's kind of a necessary evil of all of it, dealing
Right.
with the money side. So, but
And there's some people that are just they enjoy that for
Yeah.
some strange reason,
yeah,
and they're good at it, and I'm not.
me neither.
So let them do what they enjoy and are good at.
The blowback to that is sometimes those people end up feeling as though they're the only sane person in a room full of madmen, and then they yell,
Yeah,
and justifiably so. But we're all standing around going, "Look, we're just trying to make music. What are you so pissy about?"
Yeah.
And they're mad because for 8 months they've been trying to say, "Hey, you're over budget, and this isn't working the way you think it is," and they just get drowned out by guitars.
yeah.
And maybe that's the way it should be, but
That was what was good with it being in that particular instance, with it being Linda, with it being the wife and mother of all the people involved, that she definitely had a voice. She was definitely heard when she
Oh, yeah.
when she,
Yeah.
when she
yeah.
would put her foot down on things. She was not ignored, which was, again, that's a really good thing to have in this business, because if you've got only creative people, yeah, we all lose sight of that easily, and that's how sometimes things get. There can be conflict over it, where it's like things aren't, between musicians or on like engineers on a session or something, that, maybe the financial part wasn't discussed thoroughly enough on the front end. And it was like, we'll figure it out later. And then somebody feels like they got screwed, or if it feels like it wasn't quite fair, and then it can create all this friction. So having somebody who's like the business voice, keeping everybody straight is.
Yeah, my main goal for myself in that regard is to not ever talk about money. Just say, you talk with this guy, they're the one that deal with my thing.
Yeah.
Let's talk about music.
Yeah.
Because it is an awkward conversation. And I've learned that through process of doing it wrong over the years, of like, just be upfront and say, okay, we've got to have the awkward conversation
Yeah.
about money, and call it that. And say,
Yeah.
okay, it's the elephant in the room no one wants to talk about.
Yeah. It's better to get it out of the way too.
Right.
Before you even start, so it doesn't,
Because then it's just this weird
Can
cloud of like avoiding each other,
Yeah.
Well, how much of that do you think it's fair to say that it feels like, at least in modern times right now, maybe more so than it was, I don't know. Do you feel like it's fair to say that more people feel like they shouldn't have to pay for creative services? They shouldn't have to pay musicians. They shouldn't have to pay designers, artists, or it seems like everybody's wanting music or the end product for free. They don't want to actually buy anything, and then that makes it hard to produce it. Makes it hard to make it.
Yeah. I don't encounter it too much. I mean, I've occasionally had to sort of educate. It's usually somebody who's, if they're really young or inexperienced with it, that you kind of have to educate them on what it costs and why it costs what it costs, and they can be kind of surprised by that sometimes. But fortunately, I don't have to deal with it too much.
On that topic,
But I used to.
educating your clients.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
I mean,
Because we know what we do, but somebody who is an artist, they're an
Yeah.
artist. They're not an engineer. They're not a producer.
mostly lately, like the last few years, I've been mostly working on stuff with people who have made a bunch of records or are pretty well versed in it, and we don't have to do that. But I have had a couple where it's just somebody young and green that you just got to sit down and spell it out of why things cost what they do and what it goes towards. And I do think if you get the sense that someone might not understand it, I don't think it hurts to sit down and spell some things out that you might take for granted, of like you just
Right.
assume that somebody knows.
Well, like a good example of that would be I've had to have a few conversations with some clients here recently where I'm explaining the importance of mastering and what mastering is.
Yeah.
Because I've had the conversation, people will be like, "Oh, do you master?" And I'm kind of like, well, yeah, because what they mean by mastering and what I mean by mastering are two totally different things. Are you wanting to put it on vinyl?
Right.
Are you wanting to put it on a wax cylinder?
Right.
Which some people do. Are you wanting an overall streaming, or are you wanting it for iTunes, for Spotify, for Pandora? Or are you wanting it for just CD?
Yeah, you're going to make CDs,
you're
going to press records, all that.
Yeah, because all of that's different. Every platform
Yeah.
has a little bit of a different algorithm and however they do things, and I don't pretend to know all of that, but I do know there's differences, and it's like Spotify's like negative 14 LFUS or LUFS, whatever that is. I can't remember.
Yeah.
But it's, CDs like what, negative 9 and
Those letters
all
go
that
together
stuff.
like that?
yeah, it all runs together. But like a client doesn't need to know all of those things, but what they need to know is that depending on the platform in which they present it to the public, that's what a mastering engineer does.
Right.
They prepare it for that. And, the importance of mixing and why mixing costs. And
Right.
Because here's the time that you put in it.
Yeah.
And why that's important.
I don't have to do it with musicians as much and artists nearly as much as I think that the people I have to educate the most frequently, and it's a little humorous now when it happens, and it's kind of just a running joke among is people who aren't musicians or haven't recorded, where it's like managers, booking agents, but people you would assume would know, where it's like,
why is this project taking so long?
Well, there's that, but there's also even just like things like, hey, do you have an instrumental mix of this track? And it's just like, no, because it was live. Like it's a live vocal. It's bleed. Or
I haven't thought about that.
I've even had it.
Yeah.
I've had it with like, hey, there's like you give them the instrumental track and be like, there's some vocal bleed. There's like another person playing acoustic, but they're in the same room. It's like there's a little vocal bleed on that acoustic, and it's and them say or them coming back and saying, hey, I think I can hear there's vocal in there. I'm like, yeah, that's in the acoustic.
Or it was in their headphones and it still bled over or something.
Totally.
Well,
but
I think a lot of that,
having to explain that and like, well, can't you get rid of that?
Right. Well, I mean, a lot of that is probably they're trying to think in terms of publishing and the business side of things, where they're trying to get it for some sync licensing, get it on like a Netflix show or something like that.
It's usually the film and TV stuff where they want the
I'm sure I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but we got the sync licensing deal with Discovery and then with MTV, and they're like, hey, this record's cool. Now we need instrumentals before we're going to do anything.
Right.
So it was go back and, hey, here's all these instrumentals, which that turned into an endeavor, but because we weren't expecting that.
I've been doing a ton of mixing here lately, probably more of that than anything, and a lot of demo work and blah, blah, blah. But in that world, somebody's like, well, can we mute the background vocals? Or can we do this? Can we add this? Can we take this away? And you add a tambourine, it completely changes everything in the mix, at least in the way I mix.
Yeah.
Because I'm sending
you added a tambourine and it went from being a good song to being a nightmare.
It's like the drums might be going to the same effect over here, same compressor that the background vocals are going to, or something weird like that sometimes. And if you remove or add one thing, well, it's all, you got to remix the whole entire song. I mean, it's not like just mute or pull the fader down.
Or when people want like a, hey, can I hear one with the bass up? It's like you could just turn the bass up and send it back, but if you're really listening to it, turning that bass up may mean that you need to, do
turn the kick drum down, maybe,
or it may do something with the guitar. We're like, well, now I kind of need to tweak that guitar thing.
Exactly.
So it's never as simple as, or it's rarely as simple as like that one little tweak.
Well, too, and you got the guys that are a lot of people that are used to. Maybe they went to Guitar Center or ordered, something on Sweetwater, and they're getting started like, we all did, and they just don't know. And they're like, well, can you turn the bass down about a 0.3 dB? And it's like, can you really hear that?
It's like, I can.
But it's like,
and
it's like they're mixing with their eyes.
Right.
And one of the best pieces of advice I was ever given was turn the screen off, tape up the faders, listen.
Yeah.
Who cares if the faders are in the red? What does it sound like?
Yeah.
Or the meters, not the faders. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of that where people think they know, but what was it, the quote Rick Paul said?
Them that don't know they don't know.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
an awesome point, though.
No, okay, the teacher's
I've
coming
been there.
The teacher's coming in now because there's 4 stages of learning: unconscious, unknowing, conscious, unknowing, unconscious mastery, and conscious mastery. And that's the lowest level, unconscious unknowing.
Yeah.
What Rick said, you
Right.
don't know that you don't know.
Yeah.
That you
But
don't know.
Sometimes the people that know they don't know, if they don't have the sense to say, hey, I don't know, that's not much
Or
better.
to try to educate
Right.
themselves or surround
Yeah.
themselves with people that do know.
Right.
Or that will call them out if they're like, dude, this isn't going to work. This is stupid. Okay, we went down that rabbit hole. But yeah, educating your clients, I mean, that's one of the things is a lot of people, they don't know and they have
it's-
no frame of reference.
It's easy to forget, you do it for long enough and you just get used to the terminology and the jargon and the steps in the process. And sometimes you just forget that
Yeah, it's
not
like, of
everybody.
course you would want a FET 47 on that vocal, you
Yeah.
know, or, you would want to run through an 1176. And it's like, we're shooting out numbers and letters
Exactly.
to people.
Yeah, yeah.
It sounds like we're in the military using acronyms.
Yeah.
And it's like, use English, dude. And it's
Yeah.
like, oh, you don't know? Oh, my bad.
You keep
But-
talking about Fett, and I'm thinking you've dug him out of the Sarlacc pit. I'm not sure what's going
Boba
on.
Fett, it's a trap. But there went you just brought
Nice.
Star Wars into ultra nerdness.
Yeah, give
Yeah.
me 5 minutes, I'll do it again.
Yeah. Well, okay. So on another topic, who are your heroes? I mean, I know you know, obviously working down at Fame and with those guys, those are some giants that you got to learn from. I mean,
Yeah, I mean on the musician side, the folks I draw from a lot are R. Spooner and Ben Montench from the Heartbreakers. Those are kind of the 2 big ones. There's a ton more beyond that, but just what I do, and I'm typically playing in the context of a band.
Yeah.
I feel like those guys are kind of masters of sort of not overplaying, coming up with like signature stuff, leaving space but making what they play really matter.
Spooner's a master at that.
Yeah.
I'm not as
Fine.
hip to who the other guy is, but
Ben Montench played with Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers since the beginning, and he's also on.
yeah, okay.
But he's
I just didn't
also
know
on
his
a
name.
ton of other records. Like you'll find his name on lots of. He's an LA guy. He's not from there originally, but he's in LA now and has been for years. So he's just that dude who like he can rip if you want him to, but he's one of those that can really do the like. He's gonna play. I mean, think about like the Wurlitzer part in Breakdown, which is
Yeah.
just that.
Yeah.
Da-da. It's just like a 2-note little thing, and he's just finding it's like anybody you could teach anybody to play it in 15 seconds, but it really works for the record and really works for the song. And
That's a sign of a real professional is knowing when not to play.
Yeah.
The notes you don't play, so to speak, as everybody says. But
yeah,
I
totally.
mean, if you think you're awesome, you're going to try and do like every 12-year-old kid with an Ibanez and Guitar Center and
Yeah.
play A minor
Play all-
pentatonics
all
all
the
day
notes.
long. And play all the notes.
On like the production engineering side, I mean, it's a lot of people. I mean, I was always really into like anything Brian Eno was involved with and Daniel Lanois.
You ever
And
use the oblique strategies stuff?
yeah.
I've been trying to find a set of
I've
those.
got a physical deck.
I need to get
Somebody
one.
gave me as
I
a
think
gift.
they've re-released them. I need
Oh,
to buy
really?
some. Are you aware of that? What that is?
No, no clue.
Yeah, explain for those that
It
don't
was
know.
Brian Eno and it's somebody Schmidt, I think, a German guy. It was sort of them putting into it's like a physical deck of cards that they used as like creative. They call them oblique strategies, but it's just like sort of if you get into a creative hole or and backed into a corner and you don't know
I
what
think
to
I'm going to
do
go to
next.
Amazon here in just a little bit and order
See
it.
if-
See
yeah.
if, or their website.
But
see
I mean,
if-
it's a big, thick, probably 100 or so cards, and it'll be sometimes it's like really specific stuff. Like I'm trying to think of an example of one.
have you
like-
used it and it been successful?
Yeah, and it's kind of more just to like break your mental habits and your creative habits. I think that's really why they made them too, is just to like get you out of what you would normally do. So there's some that'll be like, if you're stuck, be like, make a list of everything you might do. Like try to make an exhaustive list of all the things you might try and do the last thing on the list.
Oh, that's cool.
Or then some of them will be just like really a lot more abstract, like where's the frame will be all it says. Or God, there's some really crazy ones. Or it might just say like falling water, or like it might just have like an image or a phrase. But sometimes it'll be like actually instructive and tell you a process to apply.
So I'm going to Amazon after this. Is what
yeah,
I'm hearing.
they're
That's
cool. They're
Did
really
you say you
cool.
got like an original one? one, or
Not like an original, but like the first sort of batch. Somebody, my stepdad actually got them for me for Christmas several years ago because I was talking to him about it.
yeah, that's really cool that you mentioned that. 'Cause one of the things that people I hear complain about, or well, I can't buy you anything music related because if I go for the listener side, like I don't know what records you have.
Right.
If I go for the the performance or gear side, I don't know enough about this to know what to get you. So that
Right.
sounds fantastic, right? Because I mean,
Yeah, I just did a quick Google search, and like one of them's like humanize something free of error.
Yeah.
And turn
What?
it upside down.
Yep.
Which frame would make this look right? Only a part, not the whole.
Yeah.
In total darkness or in a very large room, very quietly.
Okay.
Go outside and shut the door. That's some crazy junk that I would look. I
It's-
need to get a set of
it
those.
sounds what you say on the back of the Modest Mouse record, and I'm not
Yeah.
complaining. I'm not complaining,
Yeah.
but
There's one I have like just that's on display all the time, like near the console. That's a little bit self-deprecating, but I like was it who should be doing this job? What would they do?
Oh wow, dude, that's genius though.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of like, have you ever answered that question and said
Yeah.
me?
no.
No,
Have you ever?
I haven't. I never.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, what is an example of that? I mean, have you?
I
Has
don't-
that changed your perspective in a session?
Sometimes, yeah, and it can help on the playing side too. Like you definitely get on any instrument sort of habits. And
Dude, that is so genius.
you play the same licks, or sometimes that can be like a really helpful way to just like totally rethink what you would normally do and not let your hands do what they would habitually do.
Well, that's what I did when I first started recording. I had a guy, older gentleman, like in his 70s, that was singing like some Sinatra type stuff, and it was just his head was too into it. He was too thinking about it. And I had a drum just sitting in the corner, and I just handed it to him and said, "Here, hold this," and pushed record. Now sing. And he just had
Yeah.
this goofy look on his face, and he nailed it.
Yeah.
And it was just like the most random. Like, why am I holding this drum?
I've heard of people getting singers to like stand on chairs,
Yeah.
for similar stuff like
I
that for
always
similar
wanted to do
reasons.
that, but I've never done it.
Yeah,
I've not had a need yet.
I haven't really done it, or sometimes you just I don't know.
Maybe I should get in my
Take a
chair
break.
here.
Do you know David Gist?
Yeah.
Okay, so many years ago, he and I were playing in a band together, and we were recording at Clearwave Studios with Jeremy Stevens. And he had played the same solo until myself and Taylor Moore, we were the only ones left there. We couldn't stand it anymore. We're talking about he'd been going for an hour.
Yeah.
So we just cracked open the door and started throwing batteries at him. We started taking batteries out of things and pelting him with batteries while he was playing.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I don't know if it worked, but he took the last take after he got hit with a 9-volt, like right upside the left temple. He was fine with that take.
Well, as a guitar player,
I should throw batteries at you. Okay. I hear
maybe
you.
so, because I mean, well, I had
Sorry,
a session here two or 3 days ago, and the guitar player nailed it. We were just testing sounds. I was over here adjusting stuff, and I just got it adjusted before he started, really getting into it, and we just left it. I was like, dude, we're going to spend another 30 minutes or an hour trying to get this,
Yeah.
and we're going to go back and say let's use that first take.
Yeah.
So let's just use that.
Yeah.
Rather than wasting time, let's move on. And he was wanting to be a typical guitar player, and like, no, I can do it better. And it's just like, maybe you probably can, but that's great.
Yeah.
Let's move on.
I don't want it better.
Yeah.
It works. It's fantastic. And you hit on something that you may not do again. Kind of like Spooner. My experience working with him is that he's never going to do the same thing twice.
Right. You better be rolling.
And you better have record.
Yeah.
And Pro Tools playlists, thank God for that.
Yeah.
Because you can build a track with him.
Yeah.
And he's going to use the most weird sound sometimes. Like one time we were in A down the hall, and he had this cheap Casio keyboard and picked the most worst sound that I would have been like, we could have done without that sound. Y'all could have saved your money and maybe charged me $5 less for this keyboard. And he used that. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to be the guy that records Spooner and it sounds bad. And it sounded amazing. He heard something I didn't hear. And
Yeah.
that was kind of a moment of realizing, oh, I got to trust my musicians.
Yeah.
They are hearing they're pros for a reason. It's why you hire professionals. They know something I don't know. So I'm going to sit back and watch this happen, kind of like we were talking earlier, is somebody wanting their idea to be heard. It may not
Yeah.
have been the right idea,
Right.
but it ended up being the right thing. So, Ben Tanner, Alabama Shakes, Single Lock Records, incredible engineer and producer and keyboardist, even better guy. I know I keep saying that about these people that we're interviewing, but they really are truly great people.
Yeah, we've been really lucky. We've had some, not just people that are important to the music scene at large, because that's obviously what we're trying to do here, but they've all been really great people. They've been good humans. They've been kind. They've been thoughtful, and they're just fun to be around.
Absolutely. Lots of fun. And just the fact of the matter is that they took time out of their day to spend with us in an interview. And that means a lot. So many thanks to all of the great people who we have interviewed, especially Ben Tanner. But also, huge thank you to all of our listeners and supporters, because without you guys, we would have no reason to be doing this podcast. We would just be two guys sitting here talking to each other, and that's just sad. So thanks for listening. Tell all of your friends. If you love what we're doing, leave us a review and a rating on social media.
If you moderately like what we're doing, leave us a review.
Yeah, seriously, and give us honest feedback, because we prefer positive reviews. We prefer 5-star ratings, but, who doesn't? But at the same time, be honest with us, because we want to get better. We want to present this to you in the best way possible. We're working on getting more people to let us interview them. Also, if you have suggestions.
Yeah, you never know. We might be able to get in touch with these people, and they might agree to an interview.
Yeah.
So yeah, shoot us some suggestions. Just say, hey, I'd like to hear from so-and-so. And no promises, but we might be able to make it happen.
Stranger things have happened. With that, thank you.